Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Let's Talk Stamps. Today, I wanted to have a special conversation with you on Syrian postage stamps in light of the fall of the Assad regime in Syria over the weekend. Now, this was a remarkable historical achievement that happened over the weekend. It really was the culmination over the past 10 days where we saw in the news the Syrian opposition overtake the city of Aleppo, then Hama, then Homs, and finally over the weekend entering Damascus and deposing 53 years of Assad dynastic rule in Syria. I wanted to show some of the stamps from Syria, particularly during the period of when the Ba'ath Party, which was the official political ideology inspiring the government in 1963, that's when the Ba'ath Party took power in Syria, followed by the 1970 coup by Hafez al-Assad. That was the father of Bashar al-Assad, and really just take a look at some of the images that we see in Syrian stamps throughout the period of the Ba'ath Party rule since the 1960s and under the Assad dynasty. So if we look here in 1964, and we can take a little bit of a closer look, this is the first anniversary of the Ba'athist Revolution from March 8th, 1963. Now, the Ba'ath Party was the official governing party, the sole governing party that was legalized and authorized in Syria. The only other Arab country where the Ba'ath Party had been the official political party was in Iraq, but that also became defunct in 2003 after the US-led invasion of the country and the overthrow of Saddam Hussein. So this stamp here shows the flag and the colors associated with the Ba'ath Party, which is black, white, red, and green. The slogan of the Ba'ath Party, in English, it's unity, which refers to Arab unity, the unification, the aspirations that all of the Arabic-speaking peoples throughout North Africa and the Middle East theoretically should be unified according to Ba'athist doctrine. It also refers to freedom. Now, in practice, this did not really mean freedom for personal or individual liberty, but rather this meant freedom from foreign control. And another tenet of Ba'athist ideology was socialism, and that really referred to Arab socialism, which was a mix between, it was sort of a midway between the capitalist West and the communist East. It was its own sort of crafted to be its own unique form of Arab socialism, but that in practice was really a state-driven economy. So this is a very colorful commemorative issue from 1964 to commemorate the first anniversary of the Ba'athist Revolution in Syria. And you'll notice that throughout the mid-1960s, you'll see a lot of colorful stamps that will honor and commemorate Arab, pan-Arab issues and themes. So, for example, you'll see here in 1965, there is a series of stamps that several Arab countries released, including Syria. This was a joint Arab release to commemorate the Deir Yassin massacre in 1948, which refers to the massacre and fighting that took place during the British Mandate of Palestine, during the civil war in Palestine between the Jews and Arabs of Palestine, in which there was a massacre of Arabs. There were massacres on both sides, but In this particular instance, it refers to a massacre of Arabs at the hands of the Jews of Palestine. And it's a very graphic symbolism in this stamp. I mean, you can see a map of Palestine. And if you look really closely, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but if you zoom in and look really closely, you'll see several cities that are named in Arabic in the map. And you'll see more clearly a dagger thrust into Palestine, the map of Palestine as it existed before Israel's independence in 1948, dripping with blood. So that very stark imagery and symbolism suggests that Palestine is bleeding at the hands of the Zionists or the Jews of Palestine. So this is just one example of some of the stamps that you will see from this period. But you'll also see other stamps that are less graphic. One, for example, also from 1965, that seeks to welcome the Arab immigrants that may have fled or have left Syria to return. So you can see an image of a Syrian wearing traditional Arab garb, and then a Syrian who may be living outside of Syria in the diaspora wearing Western garb, and they're embracing each other. That's a really nice stamp. And let's see, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things and a variety of topics. Some of it is political, some of it is just more mundane. There's a traffic day stamp from May 4th, 1966 to celebrate Traffic Day in Arab countries. You can see the red, yellow, green traffic light and a map of the Arabic-speaking world or the League of Arab State Members. And I've seen the Traffic Day stamp not just issued in Syria, I've seen that in Kuwait and in several other countries. So that probably was also a joint issue. There's a lot of other patriotic themes that you'll see in Syrian stamps. So for example, this 3-set series issued in 1967 commemorates the 21st anniversary of the evacuation of foreign troops from Syria. So that would refer to French troops during the French Mandate, French colonial rule in Syria. And you can see there's 3 Syrians. They appear to be youngsters, youthful Syrians hoisting the patriotic Syrian flag to free Syria from French colonial rule. Let's see, if we take a look here, I can spot another commemoration of the Syrian Ba'ath Party. This was issued in 1968, and this is 21 years of the Arab Ba'ath Socialist Party. So the Ba'ath Party had really played a very profound role in shaping Syria's political identity, culture, education, and foreign affairs. So you will see sort of a repetition of Syrian stamps during this period that have Ba'athist themes and symbolism, pan-Arab symbolism and themes. You know, it really goes without, saying that Syria has for decades prided itself on being the bleeding heart of pan-Arabism or pan-Arab solidarity. Syria had traditionally, even when it was under authoritarian or dictatorial rule, it was not a religiously inspired state. It was not an Islamic state. It was not ruled by religion. Syria was one of actually the few countries in the Arab region that was staunchly secular. And this is important to point out because Syria, to this day, is a very heterogeneous society. It's an Arab country, but you have a patchwork of various ethnic and religious groups, including Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims. There are also Alawites, which is an offshoot of Shiite Islam. And the Alawites, as a minority in Syria, They comprise the background of the Assad family. Bashar al-Assad, his father, they hail from the Alawite community. So that's just another example of Syria's diversity. There are also Druze. There are also Kurds, Kurdish people. There are Armenians. There are Ismailis. There are Cherkessans. There are Christians. There had been in the past even a tiny Jewish community in Syria. So very diverse. And so for that, you tend to see more secular nationalist themes in Syria as opposed to strictly religious themes like we would see more, for example, in countries like Saudi Arabia. Let's see, it's very common in Syrian stamps to see commemorating the Palestinian cause, the Arab cause of Palestine. Many other Arab countries throughout the decades have issued stamps to honor Palestine. This is from 1968, and it's called Palestine Week. So if you can see, you'll be able to see a map of Palestine from the river to the sea as those borders existed prior to the State of Israel in 1948. There's a map of Palestine. It's written in Arabic, Philistine. You can see Syria's country labeled in English and Arabic at the top, Syrian Arab Republic. That was what Syria was officially known as. Although, because of the breaking news over the weekend and the unprecedented developments with the overthrow of the Assad regime, we are going to actually witness a new political governance structure in Syria. It is unfolding as we speak. It is too early to know for sure what that will look like. There are some Islamist elements. There are terrorist factions that have been fighting as part of the opposition in Syria. There are more moderate or secular movements as well. It is a variety of different factions. So it's a little bit too early to tell exactly how any new emerging Syrian political polity and governing structure will emerge. So we are just going to have to wait and see. But if we look back here to the 1970s, you can start to see some other themes. One that's really interesting, I think, especially for an Arab country, but this also speaks to the volume of Syria's secularism as an Arab country under the Ba'ath, under the Assad regime, which really starts when Hafez al-Assad seized power by way of coup in 1970, November 1970, formally becoming the president of Syria in 1971. But you see here in 1970, two postage stamps of Vladimir Lenin, the famous communist. This is unusual. I don't know of any other Arab country, perhaps with the exception of South Yemen, the People's Democratic Republic of Yemen, that was Marxist, that would have had stamps commemorating a Marxist leader like Lenin. So I think that's kind of cool. That's very different to see in Arab philately any deference or honoring of a Soviet or a communist leader. Very interesting. You see other themes like Labor Day, World Telecommunication Day. Another joint issue by several Arab countries, I see here from 1970, again going back to showing honor toward the Palestine cause, the plight of the Palestinians, is a stamp in 1970 to commemorate the first anniversary of the burning of al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, al-Aqsa Mosque is the third holiest site in Jerusalem, and this commemorates a tragic event in 1969 when an Australian pilgrim who was visiting the Holy Land set ablaze attempted to set ablaze Al-Aqsa Mosque, and there was damage done on the compound, and several Arab countries, including Jordan, issued commemoratives to honor the burning of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, I don't have that many more Syrian stamps, unfortunately. I really just wanted to show you what I have. The first stamp in my collection that I have of Hafez al-Assad, who was the founder of the Assad dynasty. Again, this was the father of the current, or formerly the current president, Bashar al-Assad. His name was Hafez al-Assad. He was a military officer. He did seize power in Syria by way of coup. So his picture became a prominent feature throughout the 1970s and 80s, and until his death in 2000 in Syrian stamps. So you see his image throughout much of Syrian stamps to kind of show and solidify his power, to show that almost like a cult of personality that we saw in other authoritative regimes, like in Saddam's Iraq. Saddam's picture appeared frequently throughout Iraqi stamps. It's interesting also, or maybe not so interesting, that when the leader of the Arab world during the 1950s and 60s, Gamal Abdel Nasser, the Egyptian president, the real champion of pan-Arabism and Arab unity, when he passed away in the fall of 1970, we have here a commemorative to celebrate and honor his passing. This was issued on October 17th, 1971. There's a portrait of Gamal Abdel Nasser, the famous president and leader of Egypt, who really influenced and shaped Arab policy throughout much of the Cold War during the 20th century. Let's see. This stamp here of Hafez al-Assad, if you can see that, this was issued in 1971, and this title of the stamp is The Movement of the 16 November 1970, and that has to do with the coup, with the corrective movement, as they were describing it, the regime, where Syria under Hafez al-Assad overthrew the previous regime to install the new regime, which had, as the Assad family dynasty, remained, as I said, in power as the sole family power dynasty since 1970 until just this past weekend. So again, this is remarkable. I think the last, or the oldest stamps, I should say the most recent stamps, rather, that I have of Hafez al-Assad were issued in 1995, so just a few years before his death in 2000. And this is a nice set. Again, this was issued December 31st, 1995, to celebrate the leader at the time of Syria. When he, Hafez, passed away in 2000, he was succeeded by his son, Bashar al-Assad, who had remained in power really until Sunday of this week. So I just wanted to share with you all, because this is such a timely and historical event that we are all witnessing on our televisions and reading the newspapers. You know, we are praying for the safety of the Syrian people, and I personally hope that whatever new regime succeeds, that it will be an inclusive regime, that it will be tolerant of all its ethnic and religious inhabitants, that there won't be retribution, that there won't be score settling on a mass scale and purges, that there won't be another exodus of refugees, because the Syrian people and the Syrian nation have already suffered so much tragedy, so much violence, so much destruction over the past decade. I think most people really are just hoping that there will be peace and serenity in that country because the people deserve it. So, with that, I hope you enjoyed my collection of Syrian stamps and some of the history associated with Syrian stamps under the Ba'ath Party, under the Assad regime. We are now entering new territory and new waters. Much remains to be seen, so we have to just be cautiously hopeful and optimistic that there will be a better future. I'm excited also to see if there is a new regime, what kind of new postage stamps will be issued. That will be really neat and fun to look at, and maybe to start a new collection of Syrian stamps under the new administration. So if you like this video, please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button so I can create more content like this. And as always, happy stamping.